More hills. It's brutal. It's brutal. I feel ill. It's never ending.
The Dunning-Kruger effect describes somebody with no experience but huge confidence because they don't know enough to understand how bad they are. Over time, they realise they lack ability, feel less confident, and then eventually have enough experience that they become appropriately confident, although never reaching the dizzy heights of those delusional early days, a time known as the peak of stupidity. The whole process can take years, or as you're about to see for me, around 24 hours. Although I should point out, it is possible I have simply set up camp on Mount Stupid and am refusing to come down. I don't know, it's too early to tell. Which might be a clue. Chase the Sun is a 205-mile cycling event that straddles the entire country. You leave the beach on the Isle of Sheppey at sunrise and aim to arrive at the beach on Weston-super-Mare before sundown. If you're not from the UK, imagine the sun popping up over the white sands of the Maldives and then descending behind the palm trees of Antigua. It's nothing like that. They say it's a ride, not a race. I say it's me against the actual sun, the biggest thing in the solar system. Me v star. And I want to beat it. So I'm racing. Challenge number 1 is leaving the hotel at 3 AM after a solid 2 hours sleep without causing a disturbance to others. I shouldn't have worried too much because the drunk teenagers making their way home from a Friday night out were making more noise in the car park than I ever could. A few weeks ago, I'd have caught an 8-mile bike ride, a pretty solid bike ride. Today, it's just getting to the start. More on my rather limited history of long bike rides coming up, but yes, it was 8 miles just to get to the start in the dark. And if that's not impressive enough, that is a 24-hour McDonald's, and no, I did not stop. Now that was because I thought the drunk teenagers might steal my bike, but still I think it shows I am taking this seriously. I made it and feel alright, which you'd hope, wouldn't you, at this stage? Half-hour ride, I'm going to call it my 4th training ride, and yeah, we go in half an hour. It's 4 AM and the competition is coming up. So 4:30 AM on the start line. Let me explain the plan. The organisers provide everybody with a GPX route which I downloaded into my Garmin bike computer. They also provide you with a timetable that tells you what time of day you need to arrive at every single mile point along the route in order to beat the 9:32 PM sunset by 15 minutes.
Now
And so we are off at exactly 4:45 AM, bang on schedule. The sun is coming. Okay, 10 minutes in. 15-mile-an-hour average. A lot of people going past me. I'm definitely going too slow. And that pretty much sums up the first few hours of this ride, people just flying past me, but I was not worried. Well, I was slightly worried, but I was not too worried because I had a plan. I'd taken the timetable information and every 5th mile had entered into my Garmin the time of day I needed to be at that point. Now, as long as I stuck to that, I would beat the sun no matter how many people came past. And there were still a lot of people coming past. It was tempting to try and stick with them. The problem was I had no idea what I was doing. My history of cycling significant distances on the road is non-existent. In fact, my history of cycling is not exactly substantial. Let me just take a moment to summarise it, because it won't take long. In 2020, I bought a Wahoo kicker bike. My road bike before that was one I did my paper round on. I then bought a triathlon bike to do an Ironman. COVID quickly ruined that, so after riding it about 5 times, including a sprint duathlon, I sold it. At the start of this year, I bought a gravel bike because it looked fun. This is my gravel bike. In January, it was cold, so I rode a total of 12 miles on Zwift in the house. February, things picked up, a total of almost 50 miles for the month. Still, mostly on Zwift, but I did go out on the gravel bike once. March was quiet, it probably rained a lot, but in April an endurance cyclist was born. I rode over 100 miles for the month, including 22 miles in the middle of the night for my 10,000 calorie challenge and 45 miles on my first gravel bike race. Never ridden that far before, so it nearly killed me, so I figured I really should start training for Chase the Sun, and it's 205 miles. So in May, I completed 3 training rides, one of 50, one of 80 and one of 100 miles. Each was a new distance record for me, and all of them horrible. But by the start of June, it meant I was on top of Mount Stupid, so I didn't feel the need to ride again until race day.
Just gone through mile 35, all pretty uneventful so far. Should have been here at 7:07 according to the timetable. I was here at 7:12, so 5 minutes off, but no huge drama. 40 done, still 5 minutes behind. Still lots of riders around as well. So I went through 50 miles, quarter of the way, at 8:20 AM. Target time was 8:35, 15 minutes up, because the plan assumed that I'd stopped for 20 minutes at the food station that was a couple of miles back, and I didn't stop. Bike's all good. One of my toes hurts, but I backed my laces off on the shoe. It seems to be better. Yeah, feel okay. So I had something to eat, swapped my water bottles over, so I've got a fresh water bottle up front. All good.
Those stops factored into the timetable are important because I plan to skip them and get myself some extra time in reserve instead. The reason for that was that the 3 training rides I'd done were all around 16 mile an hour average, and on each of them my legs cramped badly towards the end. Here I wanted to pedal slower, less power, and keep my legs fresher to see if that helped. But slower meant there was no way I could take the timetable's recommended breaks and still beat the sun. So instead I would cycle past the organised stops and food stations and then take a much quicker break on my own, away from the crowds, no distractions, no getting into conversations with people, just stop, stretch, go. Which also meant carrying all the food I would need with me and just nibbling on it constantly.
Okay, 65 miles. Target time was 9:44. It's 9:41, which is good, because went through a ton of red lights back there. Slowed me up a lot. So that's good, still on track. Hit 70 miles, bang on 10 AM. 80 miles, 5 minutes ahead. Starting to get warm though.
It was getting warm, but at least I wasn't getting hungry. I felt a bit daft at the beginning with my bike loaded with snacks, but once I pulled up at some traffic lights next to a couple of guys asking a passing motorist where the nearest McDonald's was, I was metaphorically patting myself on the back, while simultaneously telling myself do not follow them.
Okay, 95 miles. 12:02 on the timetable, and it's only 1:45, so about 15 minutes up. Back that way, about 2 miles is my house. It's very tempting to go home now and just call it 100 miles from the seaside. That way, 100 miles is the other seaside. 2 things coming up, obviously the 100 miles in 5 miles. I know I'm into new territory because I've never gone that far before, beyond 100, and then lunch. Okay, so I didn't stop at lunch. The queue for the toilets was huge, the queue for the food was huge, so I registered, which you had to do, and then split, which puts me about half an hour ahead. And that was a good call to skip lunch. My plan had been to eat some proper food there. People had told me before this, you can't just do the whole thing on gels, you need regular food. Actually, I don't. I need a constant supply of carbohydrates to fuel my glycogen requirements and electrolytes with hydration. I don't need pie and chips. Everything I needed was on the bike, and I could consume it on the move, and moving was keeping me cool. Stopping in that heat was unpleasant. In fact, while I was registering at the halfway point, I left my GoPro running, and the explosion you hear in the background,
Get the bikes into the tennis court, then put food and drink in the
that was somebody's bike. While they were tucking into lunch, the sun decided to arguably cheat somewhat and cooked their tubeless tyre to the point where it exploded off the rim.
I mean, this is where the race starts, really. I've got no idea what happens now to my body. I don't know. People are still coming past me like I'm standing still. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Not pedalling fast enough, I guess. Okay, just topping up for water bottles. Every water bottle gets an electrolyte tablet in it as well.
So water was the only thing I had to stop and obtain on the ride. I had 3 bottles giving me just over 2 litres capacity, with the bottle up front on the TT bars being the one in use.
So after that water stop, at 110 miles, I've got about 20 minutes in the bag. So that side of things is going okay. It's getting warm, doesn't look it, the sun's not out, but it is hot. Right, let's start talking about expectations. Going into this, I had no expectations because I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't really know what I'm doing. I mean, with an ultra run, I know the problems escalate exponentially. I'm slightly wary of that. I mean, at the moment, everything feels like it's just gradually getting worse, which I can deal with. But if it suddenly ramps up, that'll be nasty.
This next 50 odd miles is the most frustrating part of the whole ride. I was feeling reasonably good. The distance left to go was less than I'd already ridden. I'm over halfway. A huge number of people that had come flying past me at the start were still back having lunch. There were people dotted all over the place fixing problems with their bikes. And my bike that people had told me was the wrong bike for an event like this was rock solid. I was even starting to go past some people that were slowing down.
It's so tempting when people come past to push the pace and go with them. But with 90 miles still to go and no idea how that's going to unfold, I'm being cautious. There's a time for going mad, and it's not with over 7 hours of riding to go.
Here I'm on Mount Stupid, but I know I'm on Mount Stupid, so that's no time to be stupid.
I'm based on my current performance. It'd be amazing to come in under 9 o'clock, wouldn't it? I mean, to knock 15 minutes off the timetable time, I don't think that's going to be possible. That's my A target. B target is just to do what I set out to do. 9:15 to 9:30, beat the sun. C target, finish. Okay, 140 miles, 20 minutes up, but it is getting, stating the obvious, tough. My toes, I had to take my shoes off. My toes they go numb, and every now and again the feeling comes back, but it comes back with insane amounts of pain. I mean, ridiculous amounts of pain. So my feet hurt. There's blisters underneath my feet as well. What else? Oh, my sit bones, obviously. It's not a chafing thing. It's just from being sat on the saddle for so long. There's nothing I can do about it. 60 miles to go.
Feet was a weird one that I've not experienced before. They would go numb, I assume because they swelled up in the heat, and then I would move my toes or adjust my position on the bike, and feeling would return to them, but with about 10 or 20 seconds of just incredible pain. I don't know if it was worse than the chafing I suffered during my last ultramarathon, but it was definitely up there.
Okay, went through 160 miles, bang on 20 minutes up. 40 miles to go. 40 miles is starting to sound like not a lot, although coming up are the hills. According to the sticker on my bike that they put on the bike to warn you of impending things, 700 foot of hills. I don't know if 700 foot's a lot, but they put it on a sticker, so I guess it must be.
I still don't know if 700 feet is a lot, or even if 700 feet was correct. Maybe it referred to only one of multiple hills. I do know that from 165 miles to 185 miles, this ride took a turn.
Just on one little hill. Brutal. It was absolutely brutal. I feel sick.
And unfortunately that turned out to just be the first of many hills, most of them not little either. I could tell things were getting tough because first of all people were still coming past me, but they were having to stand up to do it. And then I started actually going past people who were having to walk up the hills, which actually helped me a bit because being able to cycle past someone for a change gave me a bit of a mental boost, which translated into applying a bit more effort. And that is never a bad thing. It's never a bad thing as long as you can feel your feet.
Okay, 170 miles and I'm just under 20 minutes up, which is cool. What's not cool is my foot. Hurt too much in the shoe, so I'm gone convertible. That's 180 miles, 7:05 p.m. I feel ill. Everything hurts. Oh my God. More hills. More hills. It's brutal. It's brutal. I feel ill. I'm doing 5 miles an hour. There's no way I can make 9 p.m. before 9 p.m. I will beat the sun, but I can't get sub 9. My right quad is starting to cramp every now and again. There's nothing I can do. Still got 25 miles to go or something, which a couple of months ago would have been a very long bike ride for me. Oh my God.
So at this stage, it is starting to fall apart. My feet are killing me, my legs are starting to cramp, and my sit bones feel like they've been sat on for a long time, and nothing helps. If I stand up to pedal, it makes my feet worse. When I sit back down again, I'm acutely aware that there is no padding in cycle shorts that could possibly help at this stage. And even worse are the downhills, because while they're a nice rest, I know that until we go down Cheddar Gorge towards the end, it's the final drop to the finish, it is a climb to get up there. So every 40 mile an hour downhill section is just setting up another climb back that has to happen. I'm in new territory here, and it is not panning out the way I had hoped, or to be honest, the way I'd expected it to go. And then I remembered not everyone thought it would be okay. On my preparation video I made, among a sea of supportive comments, a couple had an alternative view. It was a view that I didn't forget, because I printed it out and stuck it up on the wall over there. You are vastly underestimating a 100-mile ride, let alone 200 miles. If limping your way across a finish is cool for you, then I guess this would be how to achieve that. Scraping by is lame. Don't be a burden to the organisers and spend 2 weeks unable to walk. Limping, scraping by, a burden to the organisers who needs sensation in their toes when you've got motivation like that. So in order to avoid limping, scraping or unnecessary burdening of others, I smashed it up the last few miles of climb and flew down Cheddar Gorge.
Made it! Downhill all the way!
And if you're thinking flying down a hill at 40 miles an hour with a selfie stick is dangerous, how can you possibly pay attention to the road? One of my contact lenses had come out 10 miles before, so I couldn't see the road properly anyway. It made no difference. Scraping by. It's outrageous.
Okay, that's 195 miles. The watch says 8 p.m. Smashing it. Time to hustle.
And hustle I did, under 10 miles left, so I figured the chance of physical catastrophic failure so close to the finish was remote, and therefore pushed as hard as possible all the way, the final hour of riding, the fastest hour of the day. I got to the pier, I beat 9 p.m, I beat the sun, and as you'll see in a second, I rolled gracefully, not a limp in sight, across the finish line. Okay, job done. Let's break down the stats. Over 204 miles, that is 329 kilometres, just under 3,000 metres of climbing, or 1/3 of Everest, with a total event time of just under 16 hours and almost 9,000 calories burnt during that period. Body battery stress data, the battery effectively at 0 from midday. Walk to the car park to meet Jenna at the finish, and then high stress on the car journey home despite being asleep. Sunday night did very little recovery, and most of Sunday is spent in a state of physical stress. Although I should add, I actually felt okay. The Garmin is measuring things like heart rate variability to detect things that I may not be actually aware of. Dog walk in the evening and a good night's sleep, Monday, today, and I'm pretty much back to normal. Feel good going for a light 7 or 8k jog this evening. A few people have asked if it was easier than the 100k ultramarathon runs I've done, which take roughly the same length of time? And I would have to say yes, it was easier. I had the reserves of energy at the end to push way harder than I would do on a long run. And the problems that I encountered grew in a very steady, linear fashion that allowed me to predict how bad they were going to get. When I'm running, things can escalate much faster, and my recovery has been completely different too. I ran a marathon the weekend before the bike ride, and that took me almost a full week to properly get over. As I say, I'm now 2 days out from the bike ride and running this evening. Feel good. I would compare the two like this. Both distance running and distance cycling require huge amounts of aerobic effort and mental fortitude. But running also pounds the body in a way that low impact cycling just doesn't. At the end of an ultramarathon, I am dealing with complications resulting from slamming my feet into the ground all day. On any body, but especially a heavier body, the impact literally adds up. In fact, what was interesting was the number of cyclists that I saw who were on the larger side on this ride. There'll always be heavier runners at any event, from a park run to a 100-miler, but they will normally not be towards the front. It is really unusual for me when I'm running any sort of distance event to find myself alongside somebody of remotely similar weight to me. And I don't recall ever being overtaken by somebody like that. But on the bike ride, there were plenty of bigger people really pushing the pace, leaving me standing at times. Bottom line, cycling seems more forgiving if you are not the shape of a stereotypical cyclist in a way that running is not. I'm not for a minute suggesting that some cyclists therefore take advantage of that, but I've never been on an ultramarathon run where somebody was inquiring about a McDonald's. Final set of numbers, 759 riders started, 649 made it to the finish, with 510 of them doing so before 9:32 p.m. sunset. They provide no further breakdown of your position than that, because it is a ride, not a race. But with a finish time long before the sun went down, I am somewhere in the middle of that 510, and that is good enough for me. So overall, I was happy, and this part is something very particular to me. I was happy with how I did it. Solo and unsupported. A lot of people were riding in groups, people that had organised themselves into teams, and a lot of people with support vehicles that would meet them every so often. Obviously, that allows not having to carry the kit on your bike, and you can push things that much harder. I completely get why somebody would approach it that way, and at times I was very jealous of people coming flying past me with just one tiny water bottle as their only real luggage. But for me, something that I've always enjoyed about covering distance, whether on my motorbike, running, cycling, is the idea that I can get myself from A to B. Zombie apocalypse is upon us. All I've got is my bike, some gels, and a need to get to the seaside before dark. Will I do it? Yes, I will. Okay, I'm out of here. Training is now taking a new direction for me. Subscribe to the channel to make sure you get the next video coming, which will be describing that. Although there still will be cycling. In fact, I've got a gravel bike race this weekend, 75k. A month ago, that would have seemed a really long way, but now firmly settled on Mount Stupid for good, what can go wrong? Limping across the finish line. Do these people not even watch my channel? Never limped in my life.